Good evening, my extended family. Good evening. It is Friday, July 10th, 2020. Thank God it's Friday. I think we have a good show for you tonight, so sit back and enjoy. I hope you all had a good night's sleep last night and that the day went well for you today. I hope that everywhere you went, you were greeted with the love that every part of God's creation deserves. That's my wish for you. Thanks again for letting me spend a few minutes with you this evening. I appreciate every one of you. You're quite special to me. I like to start by reminding each and every one of you that you are simply wonderful right where you are, and that I believe God really knew what he was doing when he created you. All right, let's get ready to travel. Every night we travel to a different state, and tonight is no exception. So once again, I need you to put on your little kid imagination. Tonight's show is coming from a state that was established back in 1845. This state has more toll roads and toll bridges than any other state in the United States. A town here is known as the fern capital of the world. The highest point in this state is only 345 feet above sea level. That's not very high. There are more golf courses here than any other state. Here is the only place on the planet where alligators and crocodiles live together in peace. I added the in peace part. I don't know how in peace they live together, but crocodiles and alligators do live together in this state. The state has a river that flows from south to north. It's not the only one in the United States, or in the world for that matter, that flows south to north, but there is one here. This state produces the most watermelons, tomatoes, strawberries, and sugar in the country. The largest occupied wooden structures in this state. In terms of area, the largest city in the country is here. I did not know that. In terms of area, the largest city in the country is here. I never would have known that. Refrigeration, as we know it today, was invented here, and when you find out what state we're in, you'll understand why. I can't believe this. Almost 1,000 people move to this state each and every day. Almost 1,000 people. I wish all of those 1,000 people would send me $1. Everybody who moves to this state. If you find a dinosaur fossil here, it's fake. There are no dinosaur fossils found in this state. There's no dinosaur fossils in this state. Apparently the dinosaurs were afraid to, well, I'm not going to give the state away. This state is the flattest state in America. There is no parallel parking during the driving test in this state. You know, that was the part of the driving test that freaked everybody out, parallel parking. You don't have to parallel park to get your license in this state, but you do have to show that you've got the ability to drive into a space head first. I'd rather parallel park. I'm rather good at that. Funny laws top 10 list, still on the books in some towns in this state. I'm not quite sure if they're still enforced, but here they are. Number 10, it is illegal to barrel roll down the middle of the street. I figure if you want to barrel roll, go to Niagara Falls. It's illegal there, I'm sure, and probably just as dangerous, but at least you'll get some notoriety. You went over the falls in a barrel, but don't do it in this state, in the street. You may not keep a couch under your carport, nor can you keep a car under your couch port. All right, I made that last part up, but it just seemed funny to me. There is to be no singing if you're wearing a swimsuit. But I wouldn't take off your swimsuit, because if there's a law against no singing in your swimsuit, then you probably can't do any naked singing in public either. So I wouldn't do that. You're not allowed to fall asleep while under a hairdryer. I guess a lot of people here like to do that. That's all I'm going to say about that. If you're not married, you can't parachute on a Sunday. I don't know where the heck that comes from. You need a license to skateboard in this state. Up here, boy, in Connecticut, all these mopeds, no licenses, they drive me nuts. But in this state, you need a license just to skateboard. If you own a car that you're not using, you better give it away, because you can't keep it on your property or sell it to somebody. Can't keep it on your property. You may not park your car in the middle of an intersection. That's number 3. Number 2, no selling oranges on the city streets. You probably know where we are now. And number 1, The silliest law in the state, you must put quarters in the parking meter if you're going to park your elephant, your goat, or your alligator. Now, I don't know about you, but how's a meter maid going to put a ticket on a gator? I'm asking for a friend. I don't even want to see that, you know? The meter's not running because you didn't put a quarter in, you got your gator tied up to it, and a meter maid wants to put a ticket on it. I don't think that's going to happen. The state fruit here is the orange. I know you know where we are right now. The state flower is the orange blossom. The state bird is the northern mockingbird. That cracked me up because this state is so south, and their state bird is the northern mockingbird. Somebody call me and explain that to me, or send me a text, and Mr. Paul is listening at yahoo.com. The state tree is the sable palm. The state motto is, "In God We Trust." The nickname of this state is the Sunshine State. I know you know right where we are. The capital of this state is Tallahassee, and the state is Florida. We are in Florida. Now, what happened on this day in history, July 10th? I didn't forget this time like I did yesterday. I was telling my brother when I did the show last night, I forgot to put that in. So what happened on the day in history yesterday, July 9th? Nothing. Absolutely nothing happened on July 9th. But on July 10th, in 1924, Howard Hughes takes just 91 hours to fly around the world in a Lockheed Super Electra. 1925, the monkey trial begins. I'll trust you to look that one up for yourself. The monkey trial of 1925. 1940, the Germans begin bombing Great Britain. That wasn't too long ago, folks. And here's another real sad one. In 1941, just 79 years ago today, 1,600 Jewish people were forced into a barn and burned to death. That's the reason that anything that looks like, smells like, or seems like hate has to be stopped immediately. And we need a powerfully strong democracy by the people to stop this hate. I can feel this hate creeping in at times, but this time it's from the inside of our country. And now it's our generation that has to stand up to it and shut it down. Peace through strength, because as an old friend once said, he don't mean you no good. Well, they were right. Anyway, back to this day in history. I didn't mean to go political on you. 1943, the Allies begin our invasion that ultimately ended the cruel reign of hate. So it was our strength that was able to end this cruel reign of hate. And it was in 1943 that the Allies began that. In 1958, an earthquake hits Alaska. That was a couple years before I was born. That causes a tidal wave that covered a small island completely, where 3 people were killed. 3 people, and we're still talking about it. Why? Because that's how important life is to free Americans. 3 people died, and that's important to us. 1962, the world's first communications satellite was launched into orbit. Its name, Telstar. 1964, I love this. This is for my brother Wally. The Beatles released A Hard Day's Night. This is one of my favorite songs from the Beatles. And that's for my brother Wally. And 1965, just a year later, from my sister Kathy, the Rolling Stones put out their first of many #1 hit songs, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. We had a lot of fun discussions in our house about which band was better. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and then my best buddies, Bobby and John Punch, and Philly Punch, my brother's buddy, they liked the Monkees. And so we were always talking about the Beatles, the Stones, and the Monkees. It was good. 1987, trade negotiations between Canada and the United States break down. Sorry, Nancy and Chuck, you can't blame that on President Trump. That was back in 1987. Trade negotiations between Canada and the United States break down. 1991, Boris Yeltsin is the first elected president of the Russian Republic. Not the Soviet Union anymore, the Russian Republic. 2002, President George W. Bush allows all of the country's nuclear waste to be buried at Yucca Mountain, just 80 miles from Las Vegas. You know, it's funny how during these Bush years, I can remember he was so hated by the Democrats, but now that he's back in Biden, they love him. Again, I'm sorry to go political, but just things that irritate me. Now they can't get enough of them. I'll get to that later, though. In the 2008, another sad thing, peacekeepers in the Sudan were hijacked. 40 trucks outfitted with heavy-duty military-style weapons. Weapons that were deadlier than what the peacekeepers and their protectors were allowed to maintain. They outfought the peacekeepers. And people ask, why do we need such a strong military or a strong police force? The answer is obvious and simple. That's why. Let me put it in terms that a child could understand. We don't want the bad guys to have bigger guns than the good guys. That's real obvious and real simple. 2008, former President George W. Bush keeps his aide from appearing before a congressional hearing. Again, then it was okay, but now it's not. That's politics. 2009, the first man to die during the running of the bulls happened. That was just 11 years ago. Bull running began in Spain in the early 14th century. Now, that's something I would never do. That's somewhere in the 1300s. Don't ever sign me up for that. Sign me up for baseball, basketball, hockey, football, chess, debate. Don't ever sign me up for the running of the bulls. I'm not doing it. I don't think there's any amount of money that would get me to run in front of a pack of bulls. I don't know. Today is National Pina Colada Day. I bet you, with me getting just a touch political here, that some of you may need a drink before enjoying the show. The word of the day is vigilance, which is the action of carefully keeping watch for danger and difficulty. Vigilance is needed in the security business to keep things safe. Boy, we need vigilance today more than ever. You know, when a person locks their doors, bolts them tightly, and sets the alarms, they're somewhat protected from anything on the outside. But today, our watch is carefully set on the inside of our country. We have to be watching on the inside. That's the most dangerous attack, when the intruder is already in. Watch everything that people of ill will do. Watch it all. Don't turn away from it. Listen to everything that they say. Listen to everything that people of ill will say. They certainly do mean the harm of our great free democracy, and we must stay vigilant. Now is the time to decide what kind of country we want to leave our children. Our parents, the greatest generation that ever lived, left us a great democracy. Like in the movie The Untouchables, we have to ask ourselves, what are we prepared to do? Are we prepared to vote in the right politicians who will not only swear to uphold the Constitution, but actually uphold the Constitution? We already have representatives and senators and a presidential candidate who say they need to tear the country down, tear our democracy down in order to rebuild it according to their standards. Their standards. I'm not calling for my standard. The standard is, the Constitution is the standard. Our constitutional democracy is the standard. And if we're not ready to defend it with all that we got, then we're left waiting for all of our World War II veterans to be resurrected and fight for us as we hide our faces in shame. What are we prepared to do? Anyway, the character trait for the month of July is loyalty and allegiance. True Americans know what that means, and I'm not going to define it again tonight. You guys know what that means. This next segment of the show is called Old Man Advice from Me. Old Man Advice from Me. I'm going to repeat a bit of what I said the other night. During these times of civil unrest, guard yourself against letting someone else direct your narrative or accepting blame for something that you've never done. It's one of many ploys to get you to feel badly about yourself, and you are worth more than that. As you know, I've worked with children for over 40 years. Anytime we believed we had to help a student change their ways, we never used shaming them to make them aware of what we thought that they were doing wrong. Thank you, Gene. Gene reminded me of that when Gene and I worked together at a school. And he reminded me that we never shamed somebody into changing. Any true to the call educator, teachers, and makes the student aware without shaming them. I'm going to say that again. Any true to the call educator, teachers, we make the students aware without shaming them. You never want to shame them. You always want to make them feel good about themselves. And it does work. If a teacher's intention is to shame the student, they're in the wrong business, and it's not going to work. I've said it before and I'll say it again. No person and no country wants to be defined by the mistakes of the past. It doesn't make any sense. Everybody applauds someone who turns their life around, and our country is set up to always be improving because we won't have it any other way. Our country is set up to always be improving because we the people would not have it any other way. Our country's light has been shining brightly for many years and will continue to shine for many more years, as long as we never let someone else direct our narrative. So many have come to this country and proudly made it their own. We love them. Some, like infiltrators, have lied to come into our great country, and with others have disgustingly made it into the halls of Congress, only to now tell us that the very democracy and Constitution that gave them the right to get where they are, they want to destroy. This is a privilege that is not offered in some other parts of the world, and they know this. These deceivers know this. Our democracy allows for people to disagree about anything. Our three branches of government help keep each other in check, and that's a good thing. Just look at the decisions coming down recently from the Supreme Court. Chief Justice John Roberts, he had to go through such a tough time when he was appointed by President Trump, as the Democrats of today just knew that he would be in lockstep with each other. Well, just look at the recent decisions. Not what President Trump wanted, but President Trump knew he appointed a man of principle, and that's what he wanted. One who would interpret the Constitution, and that's their job. And that's what we have, and ensure equal justice under the law. That's how our constitutional democracy was written by our forefathers, and we must now do our duty to protect it as it has protected us for these many years. As long as you've listened to me for this far, I have one more thing, so bear with me. The Founding Fathers put the Electoral College, I was just reading about this the other day and I was disgusted. The Founding Fathers put the Electoral College in to protect the people in the country from the mob, just in case the mob became powerful and tried to elect someone they wanted to tear the country down. People didn't vote for a candidate. They voted for the elector, who would then vote for the candidate that they were attached to. That's how it worked. Could you imagine if a Nazi Party candidate won the presidency? Until the other day, the Electoral College would have been able to stop them from becoming president. Now they can't. I know all the Supreme Court justices voted to relieve the Electoral College of that power, but I'm against it. It's like joining a church just so that you can throw out whatever Bible they're using and try to install your own Bible. Well, you can't do it. We have a Constitution. It's our Constitution. You can't throw it out. It can be changed. We have amendments, but it can't be thrown out. Anyway, I go on to write, I believe in our constitutional democracy, and like Mrs. Kittner says in the movie Jaws, I just wanted you to know. All this was because I just wanted you to know. I'd like to end with a passage from my Bible that reminds me that our God, our Creator, gave us the most powerful gift of all. It's from a letter from St. Paul to Timothy. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. For me, this means that God, our Creator, does not want us to shrink away from doing what we're supposed to do. And like my dad told me when I was a little boy, I was just a little boy, and I asked him, what do I have the right to do? And my dad said, you have the right to do what you're supposed to do. Deep down, I knew what I was supposed to do. Even as a little kid, you have the right to do what you're supposed to do. I knew what I was supposed to do. Well, anyway, that's the show. Kept you for a few hours. So until we meet again, stay strong, stay vigilant, and let's be kind and loving to one another. Good night, and may God bless.